Welcome to today's Blueprint News. Today we bring you the latest and most detailed forecast of the 2026 Georgia Senate race. A race that is once again becoming one of America's biggest political battlegrounds. According to the newest forecast, Democratic Senator Jon Ossoff holds a strong 77% chance of winning, while the Republican candidates collectively stand at 23%. A clear advantage for Ossoff at this stage. Now let's dive deep into the polling averages. These numbers matter because they show how Ossoff performs against each specific Republican challenger. Ossoff versus Buddy Carter. Ossoff 43.7%, Carter 40.2%, unsure 16.1%. This matchup is competitive, but Ossoff maintains a narrow lead. A large chunk of voters, over 16%, are still undecided, meaning this race can shift quickly. Ossoff versus Mike Collins. Ossoff 42%, Collins 40.7%, unsure 17.4%. Here the race gets even tighter with just over 1% separating the candidates. But high uncertainty again works in Ossoff's favor, as undecided voters tend to break toward the more recognized name. Ossoff versus Derek Dooley. Ossoff 44.5%, Dooley 38.6%, unsure 16.9%. Ossoff's strongest position is against Derek Dooley, where he leads by nearly 6 points. This indicates that lesser-known Republican candidates face a tougher uphill battle. Now, let's talk about favorability, one of the most important predictors of election outcomes. Jon Ossoff, favorable, 45%, unfavorable, 38%, unsure, 17%. Ossoff is clearly well-known and relatively well-liked statewide. A 7-point favorability advantage is a solid position for any incumbent senator. Republican candidates. Mike Collins, favorable, 21%, unfavorable, 21%, unsure, 58%. Buddy Carter, favorable, 22%, unfavorable, 21%, unsure, 57%. Derek Dooley, favorable, 20%, unfavorable, 18%, unsure, 63%. These numbers highlight a critical challenge. Most Republican candidates are simply not known by a majority of Georgia voters. In modern politics, low name recognition can be a major disadvantage, especially against a high-profile incumbent like Jon Ossoff. Let's start with the most important number in modern American politics: individual contributions. These donations usually come from everyday voters, not corporations or PACs, and they show real enthusiasm. Individual contributions. Jon Ossoff, $48.2 million. Mike Collins, $1.3 million. Buddy Carter, $1.3 million. Derek Dooley, $1.9 million. Look at the scale of this difference. Jon Ossoff alone has raised over $48 million from individuals, a number that signals massive grassroots support. Meanwhile, the Republicans are in the 1 to 2 million range, showing a huge enthusiasm gap. Why does this matter? Because individual donations fuel momentum. They show which candidate inspires voters enough to spend their own money. And clearly, the Democratic base is fired up for Jon Ossoff in 2026. Next, we look at the total amount each campaign has raised so far, combining individual donations, PACs, party support, and other sources. Total raised: Ossoff, $21.4 million. Mike Collins, $2.3 million. Buddy Carter, $3.9 million. Derek Dooley, $1.7 million. Ossoff's total raised, over $21 million, shows he isn't just relying on grassroots donors. He also has strong institutional support, major donor networks, and national fundraising infrastructure. Compare that to the Republicans, who are still in the early stages with low fundraising totals. This gap means Ossoff can build a larger team, deploy early ads, and define the race long before opponents can catch up. Now we come to the most strategic part of fundraising: cash on hand. This is the amount of money a campaign currently has available to spend. Think of it as the fuel tank for the months ahead. Cash left to spend: Jon Ossoff, $54.1 million. Mike Collins, $2.5 million. Buddy Carter, $4.5 million. Derek Dooley, $1.9 million. This number is shocking. Ossoff has more than $54 million still sitting in his campaign account. This means he can run TV ads across Atlanta, Savannah, Augusta, and Columbus for months. He can fund large ground operations and field offices. He can invest in voter turnout operations early. He can define his Republican opponents long before they can respond. Compare that to his challengers. Republicans have between 2 and 4 million on hand, tiny compared to Ossoff's war chest. This gives Ossoff a massive strategic advantage heading into 2026. Finally, let's look at how much each campaign has already spent, because spending tells us who is actively campaigning and who is still building. Cash spent: Jon Ossoff, $37.0 million. Mike Collins, $0.7 million. Buddy Carter, $3.7 million. Derek Dooley, $0.2 million. Ossoff has already spent $37 million, which shows his campaign is fully active, hiring staff, running operations, buying ads, and building infrastructure. Buddy Carter has spent around $3.7 million, some activity, but nowhere near Ossoff's level. Collins and Dooley have barely started campaigning, with spending under $1 million each. This tells us that the Republican campaigns are still in early, slow-building phases. That wraps up the latest 2026 Georgia Senate forecast. The race is far from over, but the early indicators are clear. One candidate is starting strong, while the others still have a long road ahead. For more election forecasts, poll updates, and state-by-state breakdowns, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. This is today's Blueprint News.